All right, folks, that's enough of that god-awful music. Unhappy Wednesday. Coming to you live from wherever the hell we're at, from the 215 to the 513. This is Green Legion Radio's Unhappy and the MP. Trying to get you through hump day here. Sorry, I'm just pissed off that we have to do what we have to do tonight with this fucking article, but we'll try to get on through it. We thank you for joining us from wherever you may be, whatever service you're using to tune in, and whatever device you're using to stream us here, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, X, or YouTube. Always pushing the YouTube channel. So please pull up a chair. Turn up the volume if we're not quite loud enough. Use the company dime if you're still stuck at work. Crack open a cold one if that's your thing on a Wednesday night. And let's try to have a little fun as we put an end to day 3 of this week's hostage situation and look forward to tomorrow being Friday Eve. Today's actually my Monday. I was off Monday and Tuesday, had some other shit to do, some of which I will not discuss on here for fear that certain individuals may watch. So we'll just glaze right over that. But yeah, so folks, if you haven't done your homework, especially those of you that have been with me here for the few years we've been doing this, usually this week, NCAA Tournament is wrapped up, baseball's underway, NBA playoffs are about to start, same thing with hockey, and we try to go into that. We'll talk a little birds too, but, this time last year we were all flying high, how are we going to, aside from the free agency departures, it was, okay, what are we doing with the draft? How's next season going to look? Blah, 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 blah. And so, going into Thursday, Friday of last week, I was really looking forward to this show, being able to do those same exact things. And instead, we get this fucking article from Fowler at ESPN that is just absolutely, I don't know another way to put it, but absolutely damning to Jalen Hurts. So that's going to dominate the show tonight, folks. If you're sick of hearing about it, I'm sorry. But, when you're doing a podcast on a platform that was built on Philadelphia Eagles football, these are the things that are going to take center stage. So that's where we're at. And it's not just damning to any particular player. It happens to be the most important player on our roster right now, and that's the quarterback. So we're going to get to that here. But let me do the sponsorship, and then we'll talk about our, over the last week, how our last week went, and then we're going to dive right in. So, everyone, and she is home this time, Michelle's favorite part of the show. We're sponsored proudly by Cheerleaders Gentlemen's Club, located at 2740 South Front Street in Philadelphia. Just minutes away from the sports complex, Cheerleaders brings you the area's most beautiful women on 5 different stages. Open from noon until 2 a.m. and until 4 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Also offering free parking, a full menu, daily drink and food specials, and a premium selection of cigars and a cigar lounge. If you're looking for a place to take in, I think your Flyers are heading to the playoffs, right? If you're looking for a place to take in some of that action, head on over to Cheerleaders and enjoy the 75-foot HD TV wall, as well as HD TV screens throughout the entire club. Once again, folks, that's Cheerleaders Gentlemen's Club, located at 2740 South Front Street in Philadelphia. Call 215-467-1980 for all of your group and private party information. Private party, not private parts, you freaking perverts. As always, bottom of the screen, greenlegion.com. We did also see something from Adam Schefter today, saying that the schedule release is anticipated on May 11th. All right. So shame on me. I forgot to follow up with Steph to see if early birds are still available right now. I don't have the answer to that question. If they are, I would suggest getting on it, because now that announcement is out, I doubt that those will be around much longer. And we are getting into the we're starting to head towards the middle of April here. And so we're not going to, have that out there for very much longer. So if you're looking for an away trip, you're looking for the right way to do it, greenlegion.com. Trips and tailgates, away trips. And if that early bird link is still there, book away, folks. Get yourselves in line to get on board. Nashville, San Francisco, Jacksonville. That one may get moved to London. Chicago, Arizona, Dallas, all on our away schedule this year. All great destinations to go and have a good time. And there's no better way to do it when you are a Birds fan than with the Green Legion. I know Mason can attest to that too, as well as most of the people who come into our room here, including some of the folks that have now experienced that from my group out here. So book away. If it's not sold out, get your ass signed up. Come on out on the road. You want to hook up with me and my wife? Nashville's probably going to be your ticket. I may try to sneak to Chicago for a day to just kind of check that stadium off the list and see our friends with the Green Legion again a second time this year, but we're just going to have to play that by ear. There's a lot of extra travel this year for our group, for our family when it comes to Grady, my oldest. And so we'll just segue right into over the past week before I turn it over to Mason for his portion of it. Last Wednesday night, Michelle and I left for Maryland. And it's about, Fort Meade is maybe 20 minutes south of the Baltimore airport. So it's kind of right in between Baltimore and D.C. So it's about an 8-hour drive from here. So we left Wednesday night. Let's get half the trip out of the way. So we accomplished that Thursday morning, get up, finish it off, get onto the base, and get checked in a hotel. For those of you that ever have to travel to an Army base for something like this, ihg.com/Army hotels. And IHG has the hotels on the actual base premises. So if you have to travel to one of these bases, you are better off trying to book there for the convenience of it alone. Now, there are some other things that go along with it. You've got to go to a visitor center and get, registered and everything so they know that you're on base, especially now with the conflict overseas and whatnot, and especially depending on what base you're at and what they do there. We had a bit of a time with that while we were in Maryland. But got there Thursday, went and got something to eat, kind of chilled in the hotel room for the rest of the night. Unfortunately, Friday came and Grady's graduation from his AIT, which is his job training, it wasn't first thing in the morning. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he couldn't do anything with us prior to that. So don't get me wrong. That was the only knock on the whole thing, was the fact that once that graduation was done, by the time they were all wrapped up and he was changing his civilian clothes and everything, it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he had to be back on base at his barracks by 10:30. I would tell you about 9 o'clock, he was wiped out, tired. And so that was kind of the end of our day. We really only had about 6.5 hours with him. But the honor and pride, and, for those of you that do follow me on social media, you saw the pictures and the videos and everything. I did post the link for any of you that wanted to watch the actual ceremony. It was really, really a cool experience, and I could not be more proud of my son. He is officially a soldier now. He enlisted, finished his basic training and everything in November, but was still a trainee, right? He still had to go through the job training portion of it, which that started in November and just finished last week. What we did not know until we were there was that the class he took, where he is now mass communication systems engineer, that particular job, his class was him and 7 other soldiers. They are the inaugural class. That was the first graduating class for that role, which I thought was really awesome. He scored very, very high. Apparently all of them did really well, which was good to hear. Means their sergeants and trainers and stuff really put in a lot of time and effort with them to, you just love hearing all that kind of shit. Seeing my son, seeing how reinvigorated he is, he looked proud. He looked, self-aware and sure of himself and sure of what he wants to do. The unfortunate part of that is it also involved he did break up with his girlfriend like a month ago. They had differences. She was feeling neglected. He was trying to explain to her that, look, his situation is not going to change. It's probably going to get worse from that regard for a little while here. And ultimately, she wants to be here. And so she was kind of putting pressure on him to, hey, you're signed up for 4 years, just do that, and then, transfer to the guard or whatever and come back home. Grady wants to, he wants to, after his first 4 years, he's going to sign in for another 4. And then he may do this for his career, for his life, for at least the 20 years, and then retire out at full benefit. In which case, he would be 38 years old, retired, which is
not bad.
Which is 9 years younger than I am now. It's fucking pretty impressive, right? And then at 38, you can have a whole nother career and retire from that and want for nothing when you're like 60, right? You're good to go. But yeah, just an enormous amount of pride. Yes, it was a bummer. We only got just a few hours with him, but those few hours mean the world to you when you especially when you don't get to see him every day or even really talk to him every day. They had kind of bumbled up his orders a little bit. The company he was going to be with once he gets to his final duty station changed. So when that happened, they redid his orders, and what they forgot to do was put in the fact that he still has to go for his airborne training. So that had to get redone. And we found out today he got a hold of us and told us that he is leaving Fort Meade on Friday to go to that base for his airborne training, which is a 3 to 4 week training. And then from there, he will go to his duty station and start his job, which should be Fort Bragg, North Carolina, unless something changes again. It is the United States military. You're a soldier first. You just do what you're told. These are your orders, and shut your mouth. So, but yeah, then we drove back on Saturday, all day drive back because it was Easter. We would have stayed longer, but we had Easter. I got 2 other kids, got my mother-in-law, had bought all kinds of food, so we had to get back. Got back around 3:45 in the afternoon. I kind of just parked it right over there on that futon and waited for the Final Four to start. UConn takes care of Illinois, and then I passed out. Didn't look like I missed much. I woke up the next morning and saw Michigan absolutely annihilated Arizona. Yeah. And so I look at the national championship like, oh boy, let's just not get mauled here. I felt like all along UConn would have had a better chance against Arizona. Not that Arizona's a bad team. Not even that UConn was better. I just felt like matchup wise, Michigan with all of their big men was going to be way too much for UConn. And sure enough, that's what played out. Though UConn put up a great fight. They have nothing to hang their head about. Michigan had mauled everyone. They were over 90 points a game all the way through the tournament. And I would tell you, if you watch regular season, they did a bunch of that in the regular season too. I thought UConn did a great job. They held them not only under 90, they held them under 70 and had a shot to get there at the end and just couldn't quite get it done. Michigan was the better team. And when you lose to the better team, but you only lost by 6, you can swallow that, right? Like it's okay. Congrats to Michigan and all your one-shotting moment, and now go fuck off. Okay. The last thing I need to do is hear more from Dave Portnoy. And then some other personal shit to take care of Monday and Tuesday, and that brings us to today. So that was the last week from this end, getting to see my boy officially become a soldier. Definitely one of life's greatest highlights. Mason, how was your last week, buddy?
Oh, well, it's hard to follow that up. No, this is the same old on my end. Make sure the Grady knows that we're all supporting him. We're all proud of him, and hopefully I get the privilege of meeting him one day. But nonetheless, today was actually my Friday. I was able to work from home today. I'm off the next 2 days. I'm home again on Saturday. So
nice.
Can't beat that at all. I was able to keep a pulse on the Final Four and, of course, the national championship. My prediction for Michigan to kind of win the whole thing wasn't that far off, so I'm not going to really get a lot of credit for that. But nonetheless, it came true. But
damn good
UConn,
team.
As soon as UConn won the Final Four, I was ecstatic for you because I know I know. So I was just like, oh, dude, if UConn wins, he might have to like do half the show. I don't know if he can just do 0% of the show. But alas, it didn't happen. But nonetheless, this is an Eagles priority podcast, sports podcast, and so alas, duty calls.
Duty does call, sir. That is for truth. Let's jump over to the room and see who's joining us tonight. The usual suspects. Keenan Harmon in the room. Good evening, peeps. What's up, brother? Russ Taylor. Who's the bowler of the week? I got to. Well, we could go Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini.
Yeah.
That's a bad look.
Idiot.
Russ Taylor, I would like to give a shout out to the ladies and cheerleaders. Attaboy. David Loeb in the room. Good evening. How you doing, sir? Here's your dad. I signed up for early bird for Nashville. All right. Is that both you guys, or is that just dad?
It might be a thing from him and my mom. They want to go.
Oh,
they
very
want
cool.
to go down to Nashville for a while.
Yeah, well, I would tell you if they've never been there before, they kind of missed it when it was still had a little bit more of a, a little bit more honky tonk type of feel to it. A lot of it now is your big country stars own everything. So it's become a lot of corporate. It's not the same feeling. But and don't get me wrong, it's still a great time. Terry Pettyjohn, when will the draft party tickets go on sale? That's a question I can't answer, brother. Sorry. Dad, again, what trip will we see you on? Minnesota was fun. So we're planning to go to Nashville. I've already got my early bird in for that. That's the intent. Now, of course, schedule release will determine, if I can do it, depending on when that game falls. I just really hope they don't move that. I don't think they're moving that one overseas. I think I read earlier that some of the teams are already set for who is going to be. I think the home teams for those are already set. I did not see the Titans on that, so we should be fine. Russ Taylor, I heard that you were ill, headache, fever, and like kids. He's making reference to my shirt. Well played, sir. Well played. Keenan also come to Nashville. All right. Hopefully, I don't have to back out of this one.
Wow.
Right? Like last year with the freaking with Dallas.
It's like the Avengers.
Yeah, I couldn't get to Dallas last year for work purposes. But hopefully we can get down for Nashville. Keenan again. Grady's pick is still front and center on a refrigerator in West Philadelphia. Very nice. I love it. Russ Taylor, here's his bonus week. Gino for the outburst on Friday night. I 100% agree. And let's double down on that when he issued his apology and would not even say the coach's name. He just apologized to the South Carolina staff. Get over it, Gino. You fucking lost. I know you're used to being at the top of the mountain. I get it. You got to win with pride, too. You got to stop being a dick. And he's 71 years old, so it might be getting to be time for him to ride off into the sunset. Now, he's the best ever at what he's done, but that was a really bad look. Did not represent the basketball program. The women's side, he built it, and then he kind of tarnishes some of himself with those actions. There was no reason for it, and he tried to spin it with some excuse about how they're supposed to do this handshake at midcourt. And don't get it twisted. I know they showed a video of the two of them doing that. There is a separate time when that's also supposed to happen that she apparently didn't do with him, but it's still weak sauce. Like, I don't give a shit. You handle that in private quarters. You don't go at the end of the game when, by the way, South Carolina kicked your ass and you don't throw a fit at the handshake line. And then not only does he not, he doesn't do the right thing there. He doesn't even shake the players' hands either on his way through. He just leaves. And it's just such a dick move, dude. Like he came across like a little bitch, and it was really, really upsetting to see. I get it. You used to being at the top of the mountain. Guess what? The sport is starting to catch up with you, and has been for a few years now. When he first busted on the scene and UConn was tearing everybody apart, it was basically him at UConn and Pat Summitt at Tennessee. That was it, right? And the whole rest of the women's college basketball landscape was basically fodder for those two teams. Now there's more depth. It's become a bigger thing. These girls are going to different colleges, and it's become more competitive. Hats off to UCLA, who nobody gave a chance to. And I'm not a big women's basketball fan, but I do know that nobody gave them a shot. And not only did they get to the championship game, they then returned the favor on South Carolina and wiped them off the map. So hats off to them. You imagine being a female college basketball player at UCLA who had never won a women's basketball anything. And they have to walk through those halls and see John Wooden and 11 championships and all of this shit, having never won anything. And now they can finally say they got to the top of the mountain. Tip of the cap to you young ladies. Congratulations.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from there. I think that the whole Vrabel thing is really, really especially stupid.
Oh, God.
I mean, he's a guy who's married to kids. I'm not even sure if Diana has kids, but it's so, you don't need to do that.
It's so bad, dude. It's such a bad look. I will echo this as well, Keenan. In a fist fight, I'd bet on Dawn Staley. Yeah, me too. Some of that has to deal with the fact that Gino's also 71 years old. You know, and don't get it twisted. She's had her moments, too, where she's been a stumpy little bitch. But what Gino did was absolutely uncalled for entirely. Vrabel will be at cheerleaders.
Fair, yeah, probably. He's going to reserve the private parts.
Oh, God. I get Vrabel. All right. Let's try to move on from all of that. But yeah, if you have to pick boners of the week, there's three of them. Well, yeah. a couple, and then Gino, right? Like, yeah, like they take the cake this week, no question about it. All right, guys. You know, as much fun as we want to have with NCAA
we
tournament
stalled as long as we could.
It's just you can't get past this. All right. So I'll preface this with the fact that everyone needs to understand that all of the guaranteed money on Jalen Hurts' contract has been paid. He is not guaranteed anything going forward as of right now. Just his average annual salary, right? Like that's as long as he's under contract and he's on the team, that's what he's going to get paid. But there's no more guaranteed money left, which means and I'm not saying they're going to, but if they did move on, he's guaranteed nothing right now. Yeah. And so, you know, all off season and really for the last couple of seasons, we have dealt with is Jalen elite? You know, can he lead us when if you take away the run game, can he lead us? Can he do all these things? Well, you know, I happen to think he can, having watched him play in 2 different Super Bowls against Princess Mahomes. Jalen Hurts was the better, not just quarterback, but best player on the field in both of those contests, which is something you really can't say most of the time when Mahomes is on the same field with you. You know, the dagger, right? Like, don't tell me he can't throw the ball when he shoots that shot. But the questions still come, and the A.J. Brown saga continues, and now you have an article like this, and I don't know if any of you guys have read this thing. It is a long article, so you have to give yourself a few to read it. It goes on. By the time I got near the bottom of it, I'm like, fuck, dude, when is this going to end? Like, it's almost like a movie that started to drag on. You know what I mean? But right from the top, it starts with our final play of last season, which is the game against Frisco in the playoffs, where we call 4 verts for a second consecutive play. Now, 4 verts can be called 5 different times in a row and have 5 different sorts of patterns, but it's still 4 verts. And it was also a shorter field. And if you ask me, he was staring down Goddard the whole time anyway. San Francisco knew it. They converged 3 defenders on him. Everyone knows the story, right? You're going to go 4 verts. Let them all converge on Goddard and take your shot to your best wide receiver. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. You move on. Instead, tries to force the ball and so on and so forth. We were all assuming that this was a Patullo problem and 100% owned by Kevin Patullo. Now we have this article where there is some question as to whether or not Patullo actually called the play or Jalen called the play, or did Jalen just give his insight? It's all over the map with that particular play, right? Like who actually called it? Because you remember the conference, you saw the three of them was Jalen, KP, and Nick before the play, and they're talking, and you can see Jalen clearly voicing what his opinion, and 4 verts is what's called. So some of it had to be Jalen Hurts, but this article, oh my god, dude, like. So to Mason's credit, he looked up how many times the word source was used in this article, and it was how many times?
Excluding captions or photographs, 50.
50. Just says source. Doesn't say this guy, that guy, or the other thing. Yeah, Mason and I kind of went back and forth last Thursday afternoon.
Privately.
Privately, yeah. It was a text conversation between the two of us. I have my thoughts on guys that give the anonymous. I totally understand why they don't want their name on it. To Mason's point, you could be committing career suicide. I get that portion of it. My stance is then keep your fucking mouth shut. Or if you feel that strongly that you have to open your mouth, be a man and put your name on it. If you can't do that, then you should keep your yap shut or go talk to somebody else, right? Get it off your chest some other way. Don't talk to the media. For crying out loud, the media hates us as it is. Hell, our own city's media hates us, right? We don't need any help there. But it is all through this thing. You know, he's even gotten quotes in one of them where it says, I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. Yep. We can't run 4 verts. And then it's just the team source said. Well, who? Who the hell are these people? And it's like that all the way through this. See, some of it you want to look at and be like, who the hell is really doing this? My good friend Josh, he had a thought that he texted me earlier today. Is this Kevin Patullo from the outside shooting daggers because he's pissed? I think that would be a pretty stupid thing to do, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, we did throw eggs at his house, right? I mean, he might have a bone to pick. He had to wear it for the offense sputtering the way it did most of the season. And so when you keep reading things like this over and over again, and this is not the first time, this just happens to be the biggest one and the most damning, if you ask me. But I feel like it's been building to something like this for a couple of years now, where, AJ has been vocal. Devontae Smith is not, right? He's more of a introvert. He's not going to do all those things. AJ, a little bit more of your prima donna wide receiver. Who is really to blame, right? Somebody's got to eat it. Patullo has already done that, right? He's out. He had to go get a job somewhere else. Jalen Hurts is under contract. We all know who's going to win the battle. It's the guy who's under contract and has, he's been to 2 Super Bowls. But where does the blame truly fall? Are we truly getting into a Jalen Hurts who, albeit with more success, is starting to build the same sort of egotistical manner that Carson Wentz had at the end of his tenure in Philadelphia? That was the first thing that went through my head is that what's building here? Has he been dubbed, this guy? Because they did that with Carson. They pumped him up all full of shit right from the jump. And while I feel like Jalen's had to earn it more, are we back in that same spot again? Or is this just people trying to kick up fucking dirt because they hate Philadelphia?
Possibly. That's another thing that we kind of talked about a little bit in private when the article first kind of dropped there. But just to kind of take the ball and run a little bit here, like you kind of mentioned earlier, I did a little bit of a control F on the article and looked up source. And outside of one photograph whose caption included the word source, there was 50. The word source is named 50 times. And so, not to spend too much time on it, I do just want to kind of coast through the mentions here. It says, as one team source recalled, Hurts was the one who recommended for Verts. A separate source with knowledge of the situation says that though the Eagles quarterback did suggest it, he was simply responding to a question about his preferences. And you referenced the remark. I was like, oh my God, this is not happening. The team source said, we cannot run for Verts. It has been an ongoing source of angst for some internally, most publicly expressed by star receiver A.J. Brown, the subject of trade talks this season. That is in regards to the passing game kind of falling flat this past year. Some of the growing frustration in 2025 was directed at Hurts, team sources said, including by Brown, whose long-standing relationship with the quarterback has been tested over their 4 years in Philadelphia. Though there is plenty of blame to be spread, Hurts has had a lot of hand in the offense becoming calcified, according to several sources who spoke to ESPN on a condition of anonymity. Poor body language, not always bought in, not the most coachable, and the players notice, a team source said.
Sound familiar?
Though Bertula was well liked and respected in the building, there was a lot of noise that he was now doing a great job, and some people started to believe it, according to a team source who added that there were players who lost faith in him. A source close to Hurts said the quarterback needed coaches who will, quote, check him, opining that Hurts had, quote, too many yes people around him. That reminds me a lot of Carson and Press Taylor. Kellen Moore, Eagles offensive coordinator, of course, in 24, had tried to implement new offensive concepts that Hurts did not always embrace, per multiple team sources. One of those sources said that they believed that the changes concerned motions and shifts, recalling that Hurts was not receptive to the idea. A third team source said Hurts was willing to experiment with the new wrinkles in 24, but if they were not paying off immediately, he was quick to pivot and express his discomfort. A source close to the quarterback stresses that Hurts understands motions and shifts help the quarterback and doesn't dissuade coaches from using them. Multiple team sources described the relationship between Moore and Hurts in 24 as tense at some times.
And you can see it. You can totally see it on the sideline. Like, it was obvious.
When you were kind of mentioning how this has kind of been building for a few years, I think that the article did a really good job actually framing around that, saying like this is not a Petullo problem. This is something that also kind of surfaced with Moore and of course others before it. We didn't look as fast as offense compared to 24, a team source said. One team source said keeping Hurts healthy over long term, both for the season and his career, was a factor when referencing the reason for Hurts' dip in rushing attempts last season. When defenders forced Brown said that he had a chance to be prominently featured when facing a man-heavy team. This is in reference to them mentioning that he actually did better versus man than zone, even though he struggled with zone. He saw it more than man, and so on and so forth. But when defenders forced tight windows throws via zone coverage, AJ Brown disappeared, a team source said.
So here's one of the ones I had a big problem with, and if this is true, we got a huge issue.
Go ahead.
Hurts's rigid preferences became an issue again this past season. Multiple sources said, citing Petullo's desire to get Hurts under center more, which helps the run game, more often for rushing efficiency and play action purposes. Everything we've talked about, for forever now, right? Playing from under center is something Hurts, quote, continually fights inside the building, one source said. Hurts doesn't like to turn his back on the defense and prefers to process coverages with everything in front of him, the source said. If he prefers it, why does he continue to have so much trouble throwing in the middle of the field when things are crossing? Right? If you're looking at all that, this is what you prefer, why the fuck does everything have to be outside the numbers? That one right there stood out to me about because I believe you need to be under center more. You got to mix it up. He doesn't want to do it. That one pissed me off.
Mm-hmm. Eagles offensive players know Hurts isn't afraid to change plays he doesn't like and must adjust accordingly, a team source said. Added a separate team source, quote, you never know what play is coming out of the huddle. when Hurts is leading it, and in the past, he has been known to signal a route that hasn't been installed by coaches. Multiple team sources say that they never saw Brown and Hurts engage in an argument during the season and were professional throughout the season. But both tend to internalize issues, which leads to a lack of communication, sources said. Quote, clearing the air probably doesn't happen as often as it should, a source said. Scroll down here a little bit. There is a difference, a source with knowledge of their relationship said, between being friends with someone and being teammates, especially when referencing two alphas in a pressurized environment with different approaches to the goal of achieving high-end success. Quote, you might want to win, but your way may be different than mine, the source said. Quote, your stars have to be on the same page, and I don't think they always were. Multiple
Again, seemed obvious.
Multiple Eagles players, including Hurts, appeared frustrated that winning was not perceived as good enough in the public eye because of the magnified offensive struggles, according to a team source. Sirianni attempted to assuage these concerns before Week 12 against the Cowboys, stressing to the team that the importance of enjoying and savoring wins, according to a team source. One team source says Hurts is, quote, as open as he's ever been to changes. A pattern emerges if you look closely at Hurts' career. A source close to him pointed out, quote, he's at his best when he has something to prove, which I thought was the most powerful point in the entire article, to be fair. He's at a point where I'm the guy, I'm him. He's never been, this is in reference to the collapse of 23, and then, of course, going into 24. He's now at a point where I'm the guy, I'm him. He has never been that since his freshman year at Alabama, and he didn't handle it well, the source said. He, quote, he has to be able to handle both, and he's learning. Hurts is an introvert by nature, sources said, close to him said, which can make him hard to read. Some might, how he's perceived as a player on the field can influence as he's seen off and on, vice versa, the source noted. Let's go here. A league source confirmed that Graham and Chief Security Officer Big Dom, visited Hurts during the team's bye week in 24 to emphasize that the quarterback needed to do a better job of connecting with his teammates and coaches, a meeting that both Hurts and Graham denied at the time when Fox Sports first reported it. Difficult conversations continued between Hurts and members of the organization this past season, a team source added. Even members of his inner circle knew Hurts played a part in what went wrong last year and addressed it with him, a source close to Hurts said.
All right. It's a long article. We're not going to go through all 50 of these. Okay. Let's just but I think it paints the picture that we're trying to get across here, right? It's like, look, and you know my stance. I don't care for the source this, the source that, anonymity, blah, 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 blah. I get why they do it, but my stance is if you're not going to put your name on it, shut your goddamn mouth, right? Have some guts, or especially something like this. If it's that big of an issue, and this is a report, right? This is what these guys get paid to do, is talk to people and try to find shit to create articles about. The thing is, it's a long article. Right? Like this isn't like just a couple of paragraph freaking read here. It's just not a 5-minute ordeal to read this. Like I was laying there in the hotel room like, mother of God, dude. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, citing multiple sources that are damning Hurts in one way, shape, or form. To me, it could be PTSD from Carson Wentz, right? But these are the sorts of things you were hearing about Carson. The arrogance, the unwillingness to adapt to coach. Now, look, Jalen has had to adapt to a different play caller and scheme every single season since his freshman year in college, which is insane, right? Like, that is nuts, right? The only time he had the same guy was the second half of 21 and all of 22 with Shane Steichen. That was it.
That's right.
First half of 21 was Nick Sirianni, right? But if he is truly being that standoffish, and, there is a school of thought, is he looking at these guys like, oh, you're not going to be here next year. What the fuck do I need to listen to you for? Which would be another problem, right? Because the coach is the coach. You got to be able to – coach has to be able to coach his team. Yeah, you know, a team source at that time described the state of affairs as a disaster and indicated Hertz was part of the issue, noting that whatever personality traits had rubbed people the wrong way before had grown since the championship win. These are all things that point to a similar issue that we had with Carson. Right, Carson got and then Carson had to deal with he got hurt, and Foles won the title, and then that fucked him up upstairs, feeling like he had to rush back from the knee, which we all know he came back too early. That led to the back issues because his throwing motion was all screwed up, and he got cracked in the back because he holds the fucking ball too long. And we saw it firsthand in Minnesota. He still holds the goddamn ball too long. It just like look, guys, and again, I asked the room. I said, I said, what does the room think? Are we starting to look at the possibility truly of a Jalen Hurts issue? Russ Taylor says, be a man, put your name on what you say, don't hide behind the anonymous source crap. I feel the same way. I do get Mason's point in that I understand why someone would try to hide their name. I just don't support it, right? I don't have – I respect you less if you're not willing to put your name on it. Keenan, one of the tells that something was AI generated is repetitive terms in the story. Okay, you know what? That's fair. Russ again. Funny thing is, the national press has started to turn around and say the same thing. They keep changing coordinators. Well, and they do, but it's not because all of them have been terrible, right? Like Shane Steichen was a season and a half of being the play caller there, and he was excellent to the point where he got offered a head coaching job. That is a career advancement based on the fact that he had success as the Eagles offensive coordinator, right? Kellen Moore was already in the conversation of the next another up-and-coming head coach candidate. Comes to the Birds, we have a monster season. Saquon Barkley goes absolutely bananas. We win the Super Bowl that year. Then what happens to Kellen? He, again, career advancement and becomes a head coach, right? So those are promotions. That is massive career advancement because you were able to be successful on our sideline running our boys, okay? Yes, there's a flip side to that. Brian Johnson was terrible. Kevin Patullo was terrible. When it's been Nick Sirianni, he's been fucking terrible too. But now what is the difference? Why is there this stark, because it really is as far apart as you can get. You've had two guys who've gone on to become head coaches and advanced their careers tremendously by being successful as our offensive coordinator. Then you have two other guys who completely shit the bed, lost their jobs, and had to go somewhere else. Why is there this massive, massive gap? There's no middle ground. It's not like, well, he was all right for a year or two, and then, he just decided to, lateral move to something else or whatever the case may be. It's just this fucking, you're either wildly successful and we make a Super Bowl run, or you suck. And so what is the problem? Personally, I think it's when they try to make Jalen too much of a pocket passer. I think we saw that with Brian Johnson. I think that offense, which I still think had too much Nick Sirianni thumbprint on it, and I also felt that way about Patullo. I think they want to run a pass-first offense, and I don't think Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback for that sort of system. I think you need the run game. You need to devise an offense, and Mason, we've talked about this a bunch of times on here. When we were looking at a new offensive coordinator, what did we want? We wanted a guy who could come in and devise an offense based around the skill set of the players on the roster. Mm-hmm. Not come in with, this is my offense. You guys fucking, I'm going to, just pigeonhole you guys into what I want to do. You got to be able to adjust. And I don't know that Patullo or Brian Johnson were those guys. Problem, Nick Sirianni's guys, both of those guys were promoted from his tree. Right? Patullo specifically, because he's been in Philly the entire time Nick's been the head coach. And therein kind of segues to the next thing. And the next reason why I think this thing is very, very damning to Jalen Hurts. Talk all we want about the changes in coordinators. Anybody happen to notice that we had to kind of settle for Mannion as our offensive coordinator? We drew McDaniel came in and interviewed, but I don't think he ever really entertained. Now, look, he likes to wear capris, so the left coast is better for him, anyways. But Dable was, we all thought he might be on the radar. I don't think he ever really was. It just, I didn't see it. We end up kind of settling for a Sean Mannion, which is a big step for him from the Green Bay coaching staff. Again, I go back to that gap between massive success or massive failure at that offensive coordinator position. Why is it that way? Why isn't there some sort of middle ground where guys are, it's just so polarizing, right? There's no middle ground. You're either awesome and you get promoted, or you suck and you get fired. I don't know. I really would like to know why the hell that is. This article kind of paints a picture that Jalen Hurts is at the center of all of
that. Yeah, I largely I definitely agree with where you're coming from there. One of the biggest takeaways that I kind of had from the article itself, in a more broad sense, is that there's a lot of questions about the past and how this article kind of explains what's happened in the past. But what we have to deal with right now is the present and the future. And what we just kind of, in the article, it kind of lays out is that Hurts seems like a very rigid player. One of the things that when I think of Tom Brady, for example, Tom Brady's played like every single offensive system known to man, and he's had great success in almost virtually every single system he's ever had. Hurts seems very, very rigid in what he wants to do. He doesn't want to turn his back, so he's not going to go under center. The problem is that Mannion comes from the Shanahan McVay tree. A lot of West Coast, a lot of under center. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work out very well. Something's going to have to give there. And I don't think it's going to be Mannion. Hurts seems like he's almost in a spiteful quarterback. So Moore wants to do some of this, some of that. Okay, well, if I don't throw touchdowns on like every single one of my throws, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give your shot a chance, but if it doesn't work out 100% of the time, then I'm going to push back against it. So in that sense, when the article mentions that he is not very coachable, that kind of backs that. I kind of supports it, and I kind of see that. The article mentions that he like hot routes guys. Either the coordinator, Sirianni or Patullo, they'll give him a play. And when he exits the huddle, it's a totally different play. The receivers are running routes. They never practiced on this play before. They're running combinations they've never done before. It's because Hurts is playing, Maverick Cowboy out there. And a lot of this is leading to frustrations. One of the later, probably in the bottom 10% of the article, it brings up the fact that it's not only Brown who's having these problems with Hurts. It's also Devontae Smith.
Smitty just does not vocal.
He's not as vocal, which if you know anything about Devontae Smith, isn't very surprising. He has a lot of side conversations, as they mentioned in the article. So this isn't just an A.J. Brown thing. A.J. Brown certainly has his own way of delivering his grievances with Hurts in the offense, but he's not the only one. Smith is also mentioned in the article doing the same thing, yet just a little bit quieter.
Yeah, let's back that up, right? It's right here. If Brown is playing elsewhere in 2026, Smith becomes the primary receiver. And like Brown, Smith has had his own frustrations last season. Mainly, a source with knowledge of the situation said the lack of layup plays in the offense. Every catch, every play is a grinded out, the receivers have to win, the source said. But Smith handles his frustrations differently than Brown. He's more of a side conversation guy, the source said. Perhaps Mannion can help Smith and Hurts land a deeper connection on the field. So to back up your point, that's exactly what you were just talking about, is that sort of thing right there. And yes, Devontae is not the outspoken, kind of diva pain in the ass that AJ can be. But like, you want to talk about value. I mean, Devontae's just as valuable to this thing as anybody else is. And so now you have both of them who have been frustrated. AJ's just vocal about it, whereas Smitty's not. And how much deeper do these things go? Saquon Barkley's also not the guy to come out and bash, right? So let me run this one by you. And I know you got a hard stop at 7, but let me run this one by you and let me get your thoughts on this. So this article comes out, and it's trashing Jalen Hurts, okay? How many of his teammates have you come out and seen defend him? About as many that came out and defended Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
It's crickets. And that is not a good look.
Yeah, silence is definitely deafening there.
Yeah.
And you asked though, not only what do we take from it, but what do we do kind of going forward here? What is the diagnosis of how we got here and how we change? This specific paragraph I'm looking right here, I think answers that question beautifully. And more, he had a coach who, according to a team source, was matter of fact about how the offense would function. Not could, would function, and in correcting Hurts' mistakes when necessary. It was a similar dynamic with Steichen. When lines were more blurred, like in 23 with Hurts, Sirianni, and then coordinator Brian Johnson, weren't aligned in their visions, Hurts had more of a tendency to search for answers outside of the game plan, a team source said. So in that paragraph alone, I think is worth his weight in gold. Hurts
needs somebody authoritative figure.
Hurts needs someone who's not going to be a bitch.
Yep. Agreed.
And this is the exact same problem, I would argue, that Wentz kind of had with Press Taylor. Press Taylor and him were great buddies. But the problem is that you don't go into business with friends. You make friends with people in business. You don't go into business with friends. Okay? You need someone who's going to tell you the reality, the truth, who's not going to sugarcoat things, who is there to win, not have fun. Fun is a byproduct, it's not the goal.
Yeah, winning is fun.
So when it mentions that Moore and Steichen had the same philosophy in terms of coaching Hurts, it's no surprise that under Steichen we go to Super Bowl and under Moore we win it. When you have two coaches who are saying, Jalen, I don't care what you do or do not like. I know you can do this. I know you're going to do this, and we're going to win. While you have Johnson and Patullo, who maybe try to be more lenient with Hurts, try to be more flexible with Hurts, and they fall on their face because everything's not coordinated. Listen, when you have a guy like Tom Brady on your team, or Mahomes, or Manning, okay? I know these are really hard comparisons to make with Hurts, but my point is
but I don't think that's what you're doing here. I see where you're going with it. You're not comparing skill set. I see what you're doing there. Yeah.
The point of the analogy is that these guys were essentially their own offensive coordinators. They had their own understanding of the game. They did not transform what the coordinator was doing. They merely amplified the coordinator. Peyton Manning was an offensive coordinator who had a really good arm. That's basically his whole career.
It's a very good statement. Yep.
So
not a strong arm, but an accurate one.
Yeah, enough, just enough. But to kind of wrap it up here, Jalen Hurts is a guy who has a lot of talent. I'm not sure if I'd call him elite. I'm not sure if I would do that. What I will say is that he's obviously a guy who, when you make play the right way, he will win you a Super Bowl, albeit with a superstar cast around him. It is possible, though. But when you
but nobody can do it alone either.
When you don't make things clear, and you don't have clear boundaries, you don't have clear barriers, he's going to wander off. He's going to find his own way. Hopefully, Mannion has a spine, and he's not going to deal with any toddler tantrum that Jalen might have with showing his back to the defense or going under center. We need a guy who's going to tell Jalen what he's going to do, not would you be willing to or how do you feel? No, this is what you were going to do, and you're going to be good at it, and we're going to win this way. And only then, when we start winning, will you be happy. But I'm not going to have a happy offense. I'm going to have a good offense.
And that's the right way they should be looking at it. I 100% agree with you. We just got to wonder the Brian Johnson thing and Patullo and the fact that they failed, right? Because that's what it looks like, right? You can put some – Jalen's got to own a bunch of it too. Like he's the quarterback, right? Coach and quarterback always own the success and failure of an NFL team. It's just the way it is right now. But is some of the Patullo and Brian Johnson failure because they took over those roles after the enormous amount of success? And they were kind of, both of those guys were underlings to the offensive coordinators before they became, and Jalen was already there, right? So Steichen, I get it, but Jalen 2020 is a rookie, right?
Yep.
2021 is his first year as a starter. And Nick Sirianni was handling the play calling for, I think, the first 7 or 8 games of that year. So then Steichen takes over. We go more run heavy, and things start to turn around. Look, that 2021 Eagles team had no business being in the playoffs. We got there because that offense was well coached. That's right. The defense played great, don't get me wrong, but that offense was very well coached. Steichen proved his worth right away. So I think Hurts, being as young as he was, first year as a starter, he kind of was just, okay, this is my new coordinator. Let me just dive in. Then 22 happens. They make the Super Bowl. Steichen jettisons off, and now they promote from within a guy that, Jalen, obviously, he was the quarterback coach, so there's some respect there. But I don't know that Jalen looked at it the same way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's looking at him like, okay, you got promoted from within. You've already been here. This is what I like to do. You need to adapt to it, that sort of thing, right? So then Johnson's gone because that was a wreck. Now you bring in Kellen Moore, who doesn't have that attachment, doesn't have to give a shit what Jalen thinks, right? Like, this is what we're going to do because this puts us in the best position to win. And so Jalen has to conform, and then he leaves, and then here we are again, another Nick Sirianni promotion. You start to wonder if this is more of a Jalen and Sirianni problem that nobody wants to admit is there, but I think is there. Both times when Sirianni, when we know that Sirianni's called the ball about who his coordinator is going to be, right? Post Shane Steichen, right? It was Brian Johnson promoted by Nick. It was Kevin Patullo promoted by Nick, right? The 2 times that we've hired from the outside, I'm not convinced that Sirianni had the final say on who the offensive coordinator was going to be, right? I don't. I don't think Kellen Moore was a Nick Sirianni hire. I think he got told who the fuck was going to be the offensive coordinator because the 2023 collapse was so brutal that it was like, dude, bend over the desk because here's what's coming. So you got to wonder. You got to wonder if this is a Hurts thing, looking at these underlings of Sirianni, like, man, I don't want to run this offense. This offense fucking sucks. It's not playing in my strengths about why he just kind of poo-poos it. I'm not excusing it, not saying it's what he should do, but I think it paints somewhat of that kind of picture.
No, I completely agree. I think you make a really great point. To kind of expand on that, I think that the lowest common denominator here is closeness to either Sirianni or Hurts. Brian Johnson was promoted by Nick, but he's also a guy who coached Jalen Hurts his entire life, pretty much.
He was the quarterback
close.
Yep.
He was extremely close to Jalen.
He was it made sense to promote him to that role because of his closeness to Jalen. It did. It made sense.
And I think that the closeness to Nick or Jalen are the kind of crux of the issue here. Because Patullo was promoted and he was very close to Nick. Brian was promoted and he was very close to Jalen. And
you thought that Patullo was closer to Jalen too, though, because he'd been on the staff the entire time Nick has been the head coach. You'd think there had to be some cross there, right? Like, there just had to be.
There may have been. I think that the real close issue is that Moore breaks the mold entirely. Moore is the guy who comes in completely no history with either Sirianni or Hurts. Okay, he's the guy who comes in here and says, okay, well, this is how I do things. And it's worked with Herbert and it's worked with Prescott, and it's going to work here too. This isn't a thing where it's like Patullo is aware of the system. He's in the web and he's close with Hurts and he's close with Sirianni, and so he's maybe able to be pushed around a little bit. Brian Johnson comes in. He's very close to Hurts, and of course he's promoted within by Nick Sirianni. Same thing happened with Wentz and Taylor. They're too close. They're too much like buddies. You can't do that.
You can't do that.
That's why I have a little bit of faith here with Mannion coming in. I hope that he's not close with Sirianni. I hope that he's not close with Hurts. I hope that he's outside and he's unaffected enough to be not in a you hate to see it, we're an establishment figure in the organization, but a guy who's on the outside. He doesn't have a tie. He doesn't have an emotional connection. He says, "Listen, I came from McVay. I came from Shanahan's system. Okay, I went into Green Bay and I helped Jordan Love and I helped Malik Willis, who is now a starting quarterback in Miami. And Love is a top quarterback, possibly in NFC. This is how we did things. This is how I plan on doing things, and you're not going to bully me out of it." And I think that the very effectiveness and the functioning of the offense comes down to that. And unfortunately, with the nature of these
Well, it's proven itself out. It has.
right, and it's just it's too early to see whether or not Mannion is going to have a spine, if he's going to hold up, or if he is going to not give Jalen the structure he very obviously needs and thrives under, even though he may be unhappy in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think what you say. I think it's proven itself out. Right. We saw it with Kellen Moore. Right. Comes in, not attached to the organization. Right. I think Kellen Moore looked at that as a one-stop shop, anyways. You know, he always had his sights set on being a head coach. Yeah. So I mean, he gets his 1 year there, an offense loaded with talent, desperately needing a change in philosophy, something that he was able to bring with a lot of motion in the offense, and it worked, right? And
Which is exactly what Mannion's going to do.
Yeah, and he parlayed that into a head coaching gig. Now, the difference with Mannion, he hasn't been on anybody's head coaching radar. Now, success this year might change that, but I'm still not convinced that we won't have him for at least 2 years. You know what I mean? I think even with a lot of success this upcoming season, I don't think he's jumping to a head coaching job right after that. I just don't think he's on that radar yet. Although everybody's always looking for the next fucking McVay, so who knows? Lou from Dade. National talking heads are saying that Hurts may be gone if he has a mediocre year. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it either.
He has a lot of ties to the organization, though.
Dude, there's very little guaranteed money left on that contract. So if the wheels do come off the bus with another change in coordinator, he's going to wear all of it at that point. And you know, ooh, I don't know. I think it's a lot to look at right now. Hey, we got to get there. National media likes to bash Jalen Hurts anyways. Keenan, Lou, it depends on who Howie thinks could replace a guy who has went to 2 bowls and won one and outplayed Kermit Mahomes in both. Very true. And that is why Mason and I have been trying to tell you guys for a while that come that 2027 draft, do not be surprised, especially if someone like Jalen Carter is moved before that draft and we're able to reel in a couple more first-round picks for him that you could then parlay and move up and take your guy. Don't be shocked, folks. That's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you to buy into it. I'm not telling you it's what's going to happen. Obviously, none of us know. But don't be shocked, especially if Jalen comes out and he looks pedestrian still as a passer this year. Look, we all love running the ball and everything, and I want them to lean on that. But it is a passing league. And, you know, at the highest level in the Super Bowl, the game is still won in its most pure form, which is running the ball, clock control, and defense. But you've got to be able to throw the ball to get there. And that's only going to continue to get more and more up to be the case as things progress and rules continue to change to favor what is more exciting for your casual fans to watch on TV, right? Casual fans don't give a shit about a 12-yard run. They want to see a 50-yard bomb. It is what it is. We're not casual fans. NFL is going to pitch to the masses, not us. They've got us. They want the other folks, right? They want the people who are in it for the highlight reel. And a 12-yard run doesn't get you on the highlight reel. It just is what it is.
Although it is exciting, though.
I fucking love it, right? When somebody busts one for, even if it's 7 yards and he trucks a guy, I'm like, I'm pumped, dude. That's like my favorite play.
Anytime you get past the first layer, your heartbeat starts to like rise up.
Yeah.
You're like, ooh.
Especially with a guy like Saquon, where he gets through that first layer and you don't know what's about to happen, man. He could end up gone, you know?
You had the same thing with LaShawn McCoy back in the day.
Yeah. Shady could do a little dance at that line, but once he gets to that second level, dude, and forget it. He was gone.
Yeah.
Westy could do that sort of shit too. Lou from Dade. Exactly, Keenan. I think it's nonsense. Too young, too talented, and been there before twice. Keenan, casual fans can kiss my casual backside. I enjoy winning. Yeah, brother, we all do. But the shield is the shield. So the rules are going to keep being geared towards the casual fan and the highlight reel. So, that's just the way that's going to go. We have plenty of guys on the offense that can also put up the highlight reel. And one of those guys is Jalen Hurts, both with his legs and throwing the ball. We've seen him do it. To Mason's point, and some of the points made in all of this mess of an article here, he needs an authoritative figure and somebody who does not have the attachment to Sirianni, to him, or anybody else. He needs someone to put their foot down and be like, look, I devised an offense around what all of you assholes do well. That's what we're going to run. Okay? And be damned if you don't like it. You're not going to go out there and be Carson Wentz and start changing plays in the fucking huddle just because you want to throw a fit. You can't do that and expect to win football games.
No, I think that's exactly the point there. And another quick point in the article that I mentioned a little bit earlier is the fact that one of those sources who was described as being very close to her said that he does best when he has something to prove. In that post-Super Bowl win, I mean, when you reach the pinnacle of this, once you get a ring, there's not like there's like a mega ring that's like bigger than that. It's like you've done it.
No, it's true. But now you want to get yourself in the class where you got multiple, right?
Sure.
Like that's what starts to separate you as far as lineage is.
Definitely.
When you've got the multiple. Fucking Eli Manning, he's got a career 500 record, but he's got 2 rings.
I think when you look at 21, you get to the playoffs. Certainly something that wasn't expected from that team, but they did it nonetheless. And then there were questions about whether or not Hurst was like a legit starting quarterback who could actually survive in the league. That pushes him to go in 22 to the Super Bowl. He proves a lot of people wrong, but he ultimately loses. Now the question is, okay, well, can Hurts be that guy? Can he cross the Rubicon? 23 falls and collapses. 24 comes in. There's a lot of pressure on Hurts now. He lost the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year, he fell on his face in the second half collapse. What is he going to do this time around? He has a lot to prove. He's on a hot seat a little bit. He's on the hot seat. He has a 24 year. He goes to the Super Bowl. He wins. The next year, it's almost like a Super Bowl hangover, where we're just kind of riding on the fumes of last year. And when we lose Lane Johnson, a lot of the wheels start coming off, and the offense just starts to fray, and all like the tendons start to just wear out, and it's not as cohesive. It's not as strong of a nucleus anymore.
And I think that's something that not a lot of people have taken into account, including this article. There was a lot of frustration in the offense last year. But let's be honest here. Lane Johnson missed time. Landon Dickerson missed time. Cam Jurgens missed time. Like, that's 60% of your starting offensive line. Missed time last year. One of those being your center. One of those being, if you take a look at the Eagles' record since Lane Johnson was drafted, and you take a look at their record without since he's been on the roster, it is drastically different. So when he misses a bunch of time, it's a problem. And that's just, again, backs up the point that you and I have made for months now, and that first-round pick has to be an offensive lineman. It just has to.
Yeah, looking at the article, it just I had visions of just the worst times of last year. I mean, when you see some plays and there's absolutely no inspiration in any of this. There's no creativity. They ran 4 verts twice in a row. That's not bad play calling.
On a short field.
That's surrender. The way that he threw the ball was like, I want to go to Cancun pretty early. So I'm going to just throw this. And to triple coverage, when everybody in the stadium knows who I'm going to, I'm just going to throw it anyway, and I'll be damned if anything stops me. It's not a lack of creativity. It's not the lack of heart. It's just a surrender.
That's what it felt like.
That's what a lot of last year felt like. The Cowboys game was so vivid to me. The first half of that Cowboys game was so electric because we came off of a bad game the week before, so we come out hot. We scored 28 points in the first half, I think, or 21.
21.
It was
21.
21. It was 21-3 at half, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then, do we not score coming out of half, or no?
No.
No?
We got mauled
Second
in the
half
second
shutout?
half.
It was a completely different team in the second half. There was none of the I think we had like one drive late in the third quarter where we had some kind of spark, but outside of that, that was it. And it was just, you had flashes, and I think this article really just paints a picture of when Hertz and Patullo try to play fluid, it frays and it breaks down. When you have a cohesive ideology, a cohesive unit as an offense, where Hertz doesn't feel compelled to go ahead and play commando and just draw plays in the sand, then things start working. So, listen, we've said this for months. Hertz is not the kind of guy who's going to just be the guy. He's for all intents and purposes, he's a system quarterback. He's not going to go into every offense and just make it work. He has a certain thing that he does well, and he has to stick to it. Thinking anything else is going to lead to years like 23 and, fortunately, this past year.
Yeah, so the game against Dallas, we were up 21-7 at halftime and lost 24-21. Yeah, we got blanked in the second half. Yep. That was a bad afternoon.
I'd say
it was awful. But, all right. So you were 7 o'clock hard stop. We are now quarter
it's
after.
It's fine. It's all right.
So I don't want to keep any longer here. Why don't you go ahead and final thoughts for the week here, and then we'll get out of here.
Final thoughts for the week. Unfortunately, man, when I saw UConn win that Final Four, I thought of you. And then in the national championship, I was like, you know what? I know Adam's not putting a lot of stock in this. It's you know what? Expect the worst, hope for the best. So I hope he takes it well. And I'm glad to hear that you did. UConn put up a good fight, but Michigan is just a basketball machine. It's a basketball machine.
Yeah, they really turned it on. Yep.
And regarding the article, of course, listen, some of the things are tough to hear, and it's tough to read, and it's tough to process. But I think deep down, all of us know that it's not new information. At worst, it's information that we were in denial of. We didn't want to believe it. We didn't want it to be true. But we all kind of knew deep down that it was. And so now we're just seeing our deeply internalized feelings about the offense, about the team, about the organization. Someone else is saying it. And now we're reading it. And now it's making us feel a certain kind of way.
Well, at least a bunch of sources are saying it anyways.
I was just about to say, to be honest, I don't care who said it. I don't care who said it. The fact of the matter is it true or not?
That's what matters.
And I think when you cross-reference and you do cross-examinations of the history of the past 5 years, or what you know of the team now, and how the team is structured going forward, the article is pretty damn accurate. It's pretty damn accurate. We can see it with our eyes. We hear the reports. We see the press conferences. It lines up.
There's that much smoke.
It lines up. And so it's not a debate whether or not Hertz is a top 5 quarterback. It's not a debate whether Hertz is elite. It's not a debate over whether we're trading A.J. Brown. It's a question of, we know it works. Sometimes it's hard to say it, but do we have a current organization today who is prepared to do what the hard thing is to do to win? You need to put your star quarterback in his place. The guy who you're paying $50 million, he can't play.
He's not Peyton Manning.
He's not a cowboy, right? He's not that guy.
No.
So you have to make him that guy. You have to tell him what he's going to do. You have the roster to do it. We saw it happen with Moore, and the team's not that different.
It's not.
So we know it has
That's
to
the
be
biggest frustration.
The article described it very well. It's very descriptive. It's enough of a prescriptive for it to be really bad.
I'll wait for Diana Rossini's report on Hertz to make up. Not before or after she gets out from underneath Vrabel's desk.
Ooh.
Christ. Yeah. I mean, look, it hurt my soul to have to come on here and dedicate pretty much the whole show to this fucking article and continue to talk about the turmoil. But really, what you want to be doing is looking ahead.
At the draft.
And you want to be looking at the draft. You want to be looking at what's going to, are we going to trade people? What is next season going to look like? You want to anticipate all of those things. The last thing I want to do is keep having to come back in here every week and keep having to go over this sort of shit. I just don't want to do it. It was where I got to with the AJ Brown stuff. I didn't want to keep talking about AJ and all that shit. I just think I'm done with it. Let the chips fall where they're going to lie, and we'll talk about it at that point. But then, like I said, to open the show, we're a podcast that's part of a network that was founded on Philadelphia Eagles football. And so when shit like this comes out and it absolutely destroys your quarterback, your Super Bowl MVP quarterback, you have to talk about it. And you've got to dedicate the whole show to it. Hopefully, next week, we can talk about shit that's a little bit more fun, right? Because next week, we will then be only a week away from the NFL draft.
Yeah, we will be.
So we may, depending on scheduling wise, as far as Mason and I, some of my complexity is my son's tennis schedule. He decided to play tennis like a couple of weeks ago, which is an absolute riot. And to his credit, he's really dove in and he's trying to do well. But he is so brand new and raw to it that it can be a little funny. The funny part for me is it's like his core friend group. They all joined the team. So like just a few years ago, I'm watching these knuckleheads make these little home videos about, I think they call it like iguanas take over the world or something like that. It was hysterical. And now they're high school kids that have all joined this tennis team. And it's fun. It's one of those parenting moments where it's just like, this is awesome.
Listen, man, those years fly. I'm 22, turning 23 in a few months. And I feel like I just graduated high school.
Yeah.
And I'm
hold on, bud.
I'm turning 23 in a few months, and it flies. It flies.
Yeah, sure. Wait till you become a parent. Tell me how fast it goes. Goes quick. But yeah, so I mean, the last thing I want to do is have to come on here and keep beating the dead horse like this, but it had to be done. So hopefully next week we're talking about some shit that's a little bit more fun. Next week, we've definitely got to talk all draft, right? It's got to be about the draft next week.
I'll do
no
my
more
homework.
of this fucking article. I don't want to hear any more about this goddamn article. I don't. I'm done with it. Let's just get through the draft, and then we'll try to figure out what's what after that. But next week's got to be all draft. The week after is the actual draft, when the plan right now is I will be on location at the Back Porch Saloon for rounds 2 and 3 doing this show. So what we're going to do is we're either going to do extended next week, or we'll try to sneak with the passenger seat open next to me and probably rotate the folks that are there with me to hop in and give their opinions and everything, and then switch them out. It's what we did last year. It's a lot of fun, but when you're on location, you can't really do this.
Sure.
So we'll figure out a way to make sure that everybody gets their fair shake leading up to it. But so you're getting ripped for your age here, buddy. Luke says I have hats older than you, Mason. Keenan, I was 50 yesterday. I'll be 69 in October. I know the feeling. But yeah, folks, that's gonna wrap it up here. We'll be back again next week. It will be all NFL draft next week. No more Jalen Hurts filth or AJ Brown filth. We're going to talk birds, draft, maybe some other draft stuff. I'm hearing top of the draft might not be as set in stone as everybody thought it was. So we will we'll definitely cross that bridge next week. Until then, folks, enjoy the rest of your week. Get on to your weekend. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. Remember, that judge is not back in until Monday. And as always,
go Birds.
Go Birds.